Coming to you pre-recorded at Purple Studio, it's the podcast that talks about board games, the board gaming hobby, and how to become a social pariah to your friends. It's Boxfart! Now welcome your hosts for today's show, Red and Blue! Welcome to the Boxfart podcast. My name is Blue.
And I'm Red.
And you are listening to a board game podcast about board games and the board gaming hobby. First off, in this episode, we'd like to take a moment to thank our friends who took the time to listen to the first episode. When someone comes to you and tells you they started a podcast, it's never happened to me, but I imagine my heart sinking knowing I now have an obligation to listen to something I might not be interested in. The people who listened to this largely were not board game people, and they took the time to listen and give me feedback, which I cannot thank them enough for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it is that we would like to say thank you to those people, everyone who listened to the podcast and gave feedback. Thank you so much for your time. The second thing I want to mention is that we do have a real microphone in the studio. Purple Studio welcomes this Blue Yeti that I bought for $90. Hopefully it's enough to keep us going until we get thousands and thousands of dollars for the lucrative industry of board game review podcasting.
Yes, I've heard that makes a lot of millionaires, board game review podcasting.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We're just waiting for that money train to start.
Basically, we're already millionaires.
Already, exactly.
Yeah, which is how money works.
All right, so this week we're going to talk about the games we played. Next, we're going to have our board game standoff between two positional battlers, Cairn and Raptor. And then our main topic for the week is going to be board game stats to track or not to track. And then lastly, as always, we're going to end with Does it fart?
Yes, absolutely. So, starting off, Red, what did you play this week?
This week, we played Mandala, designed by Trevor Benjamin and Brett Gilbert, published by Lookout Games. Mandala is a card game where you strive to gain multiple cards of the same color to score points. What's really interesting about it is when you claim a set of cards, if it's a first time you've gained the orange card or the red card, whichever color, you don't score any points. But then it becomes worth a certain amount of points for you, right? You've got a track ranging from 1 to 6, I think. And so if you've never gained a red card before, it goes on your next available point track. And then any future cards you gain go into a stack of cards that you have. And then that dictates how many points you get for that color.
I love the theme of that game, and I love the mechanics of that game, and I love the scoring of that game. It is a home run across the board. I really like that. So one of the nice things about it is you have to play to these central 2 mandalas, which if you don't know, it's like a sand sculpture that monks would make. They would craft it over a long time to the point where when they finish this very intricate mandala, then they would destroy it. So as soon as you put a 6th color on the mandala, it gets destroyed, and then points are scored. If you put the last card down or the last color down, then you assess for who had the most on either side of the scoring track. If you have the equal amount, the tie goes to the person who didn't finish the mandala. So it forces you to go back and forth and figure out if you want to finish it or let someone else finish it and maybe not get as many points. Brilliant game by and Trevor Benjamin. I love Undaunted, and so he's one of the co-designers of that as well.
Yeah, Undaunted's not my favorite, but Mandala is much more of a abstract that I'm able to, my brain works a lot better for. So it really is a great game. The components are top-notch too. The board, it's not a board, it's like a cloth sheet almost. And you're able to fold it up and get it nice and small. Very portable game. It's absolutely great.
Yeah, I love it. Next up was a game that, again, you and I played for the first time, was Nusfjord by Uwe Rosenberg by Lookout Games that I got from the Board Game Geek Marketplace.
Geek Market.
That's right. It is the big box version, which I was looking forward to getting. It's a game about having stocks in a fishing company, and you're building up your town and getting rid of forests and gaining wood and fish and feeding the village elders and taking different elders. It's kind of a tableau builder as well as a Euro kind of engine builder. I really enjoyed it, and it was way faster than I thought it was going to be.
Incredibly so. The standard Juve that we play, Caverna, Agricola, Feast for Odin, I feel like they run for 2 hours or so. I think we finished it in like 35, 40 minutes, but it felt every bit like a full game.
I'm starting to see there is a long, a medium, and a short for Uwe Rosenberg games especially. Caverna, definitely a commitment. Hallertau, even, a commitment. But when you start to talk about Nusfjord and Glass Road, which is one that Emerald and I played recently. Those games tend to be the medium, length, and then you have the very short ones. Like I would say Indian Summer was a shorter one, and even Bonanza can be pretty short, unless you're playing with a lot of people, and then it's way overly long. I did just get the Dahlia version of Bonanza. I'm looking forward to playing that.
That's right. Yeah, I haven't seen that on the table yet, but looking forward to it.
Yeah.
News Fjord has a really cool mechanic that we didn't really get to experiment, and I think it's only because we played at 2 players. At higher player counts, I think it would be better than at 2 players. There's a action space on the board where you can easily get gold. You can sell some of your shares in your fishing company to get gold at the beginning of the game, which is pretty difficult to get. But that allows other players to buy up your shares, which means when you have to put out food, you have to pay food to the other person, to the other players, because they own your shares.
I do like that quite a bit. And the marriage of that, along with, you don't just get all the fish that come in. If you have a haul that is more than you can hold in your shares and your reserve, it gets lost. You just don't get to keep it. So diversifying your shares, like getting other people's shares and getting shares of your own out there and getting money for it, might change the tide of the game so that you get to have more money early at the expense of potentially giving fish to your opponent, which is a really cool trade-off.
Yeah, definitely.
Very much enjoyed that.
I'm very much looking forward to playing with more players.
Yes.
The next game that I played this week was Sleeping Gods Distant Skies by Ryan Laukat, published by Red Raven Games. I've been on a huge single-player campaign kick recently. I played the original Sleeping Gods. This is kind of the sequel. It's not a direct sequel. It's kind of a standalone sequel. And it's been fantastic. I actually went through and finished the campaign. I did 3 different sessions over about 5 hours this week and finished the campaign. Mint was sitting along with me and playing and contributing to that as well. The game is so like an RPG video game in board game format, which is just so much fun to me. You explore the map, and there's all these different locations on the map book where you explore, and then there's a big story book that's 100 pages long with all of this different content. It's truly an awesome game.
So Distant Skies is a standalone, right? It's
Yes.
completely divorced from the original Sleeping Gods, or at least it's its own story.
Yeah, so it technically takes place like a decade after the original Sleeping Gods game in the same universe.
There's a third one, right? Primeval something?
There's Primeval Peril, which is a small box game that's supposed to be a much more condensed, accessible version of a campaign game. This campaign, the Distant Skies one, took us about 15 hours to finish. I average about an hour per session. I think it took us 12 sessions of a total of 15 hours. So, it's not necessarily an easily accessible game. Primeval Peril is a much smaller, self-contained version of Sleeping Gods.
I'm thinking about picking that up. The next game that I played was a solo game that I played it solo, was the game Fliptown. I feel like we've talked about Fliptown. Fliptown is by Stephen Aramini, by Right Stuff Games. It is a flip and write, essentially. Pretty interesting premise where you have a regular deck of cards. I love games where you have a regular deck of cards and can make those into a game in and of itself. This one was it was an interesting take on a Western theme. I feel like the theme was kind of laid on. It definitely went along with it. I think you'd very much enjoy it because you seem to be very good at tracks games that have perpetual bonuses that stack and cascade. So Cascadero,
Sure.
You were dominated myself and Shamrock at that game. I think you have a brain for it. Hadrian's Wall, you were very good with that one too. And I think you would also exceed at Fliptown as well.
I tend to do pretty well at those, and I like, rolling rights, flipping rights. I just like that style of game also. Hadrian's Wall, Cascadito is another one that I like. What is the horse racing one? I really like that game.
Long Shot the Dice Game.
Long Shot the Dice Game. That's really great. I'm not quite as good at that one. That one has some prediction and dice luck in it that doesn't tend to work for me, but I like the style of game.
I definitely like Long Shot. I think that's probably my favorite roll and write because it does also... There's a solo mode, but it relies on the actions of other players in a more impactful way than a lot of the heads down, hey, everyone's got the same cards and they're filling out their boards differently and not influencing each other. I'd love to try the roll and write or the flip and write for Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, Twilight
that
Inscription.
Looks crazy.
I think
Twilight
it looks
Inscription. Yeah,
very cool.
It looks crazy.
The next game that I played this week, what we played this week, was Zoo Ball by Duncan Malloy, published by Osprey Games.
Cool.
Zoo Ball is a...
Stupid.
Okay, not stupid. It was great. It's a dexterity soccer kind of game.
I'd phrase it that way,
where you have 4 circular discs that... Okay, let me step back. The first thing you do when you open the box is you've got these discs in the different player colors, but they're just blank. And then there's a whole sheet of stickers with these different like anthropomorphic animal players that you put on the different disc. And it's not like these animals are for the red ones, these animals for the blue ones. So Blue and I kind of drafted our animals to build our teams. Good. It was a lot of fun. It was
so good.
So, I've got the big gorilla and he's got the giraffe, and so it was fantastic. But you position them out on the kind of felt mat, and you position them out on the felt mat, and then flicking them dexterity style, you try to use your blockers to get in the way of the enemy scoring piece, and you try to get your scoring piece into the end zone. Is a fantastic, very fun game.
I will say that game was very fun to play, but it is stupid. I can see it being more fun with more people, not because we didn't have fun, but I would say like the craziness that would ensue of all those pieces on the board. I really like the mechanic of, there's only one piece that can score, so you better be dang sure that one has the ability to, slide into that position and put your blockers in the right place. It didn't seem like the punishments were enough. If you went off the board, it would be like, okay, I went off the board, but I'm right behind the goal. Maybe a pool logic of scratching where you went off and then you got to be put back on the other side or something like that. I'm sure there's leagues for Zoo Ball. I'm sure there's intramural rules and all crazy kind of things, but it was such a fun game to just pick up, play, and I'm sure we'll go back to it at some point.
Yeah, and as you say, we played 2-player, but it does have up to 4 players as well, and I can only imagine the chaos that would be happening with multiple people. But you bring up a good point. There's only a single piece that can score, and the end zones are kind of at the opposite ends of the mat. And so if you just, hit yours as hard as you can to get it off the far side of the mat, and then you appear right behind the goal. I don't know why I didn't really think of that, but that seems kind of like a...
Let's be clear. We didn't go into depth in the rules. Yeah. It was at the end of a night, and we were both tired, and I said, hey, you want to try this dumb game I got? And you said, yeah, sure. Pulled it out, put the stickers on, and then played. And, that's the ultimate goal of being an adult and pulling down a game, right? You just play without looking too hard at the rules. So if I'm missing a rule, I apologize to the designer, but it's a super fun game no matter what. And those are the games we played this week. Next up, we have our segment, Board Game Standoff. This is where we pit 2 games against each other, not for which is better, but 2 games that are very similar, and we give our take on the pros and cons of each, and then at the end give our estimation of which one we would choose to play if we could only pick one. And today's games are Raptor by Bruno Catala and Bruno Faiduti from Matago Games, and the second is Cairn by Christian Martinez of Matago as well. So starting off, let's talk about Cairn first. What's your experience with Cairn, Red?
I've only played Cairn once or twice. It's an positional battler game where each player, a 2-player positional battler game, where each player takes a set of 5, I think, standees or druids. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Druids. And the first thing that always strikes me about it is their sculpts are so good. Yeah. The sculpts are so good. They're such unique shapes, and like it's not your standard warrior or anything. As you say, they're druids, so some of them have these cool staffs and these big hats, and I don't know. They're just great. Helmets, I don't know.
Well, I think one's like a woodland race and the other's like a sea race.
Yeah, but they've got one of them's got these big like I don't
horns,
know.
Like it's not a hat.
I don't know. I think they're hats. It doesn't matter. But regardless, you start at different sides of the board, and in the middle of the board there are tiles that give some sort of bonuses if you're able to land on top of them or jump over them. And so it's a kind of a chess style, capture your opponent's pieces to try and win.
Honestly, we could probably put this one up against Onitama as well.
Yeah.
Onitama definitely is it's a 5x5 grid as well. I would say it's Onitama is a little more static in when you start the game. That's what you're going to see. The beauty of Cairn is those variable tiles that you can land on, but also how you take actions is dictated by a flipping token mechanism, where if I move one of my guys diagonal, that token flips over. Now you can't move a person diagonally. You can only move a person orthogonally, which I think is such a cool way of gaming out how you're going to make a move, because you don't just think about your own, you think about your opponents, and that's what it reminds me of Onitama.
That's a great point. Onitama has the mechanic where it's based off cards, and if I use it, then it goes over to your side, so then you can use it next. So that is a good point. I love chess. Obviously, chess is kind of the original or a very, very old positional game.
Still haven't played that one.
Yeah. You wish you hadn't. I don't think you've ever beaten me at it, but...
Have we played chess?
I'm sure we have.
I'm sure we played chess. I know that we've played it at least once. Sharphair, the Ultimate Blood Bowl champion, beat me when we were at the bachelor party. And
So he beat you at Blood Bowl and chess?
I'm very sure Sharphair, the Ultimate Blood Bowl champion, has won more games against me than anybody else, including your divine self.
Oh my goodness, that's fair. I guess I'm just going to have to up my game.
Apparently.
But I really like chess. I can't get behind Cairn. I don't know what it is about the game. I think honestly, I think it's the added tiles in the middle. As you say, it adds so much complexity and
symbology.
But when it comes to an abstract or a positional battler, I just can't keep focus on all the different things. I remember when we played it that you were able to capitalize on those tiles a lot more than I was able to, because I was more focused on the positions and trying to capture the pieces, and it just didn't work out for me.
I very much enjoyed Cairn, but it does remain a game where if I had an alternative or something else, if somebody asked me, hey, can we play Cairn? I would be like, oh yeah, absolutely. It's not that big of an overhead to relearn the game. The game doesn't last very long itself, and on top of that, it's a beautiful game. It's really, really pretty. It's such a stupid thing to even mention, but the insert was really nice too. It had little spots for all the characters had their own little spot in the box, and I think I even primed, but I didn't paint them. But it has also left the collection. So it's one of those games where if I had to choose between that and a different one, then I chose that one. I guess that's a little spoiler for what's to come. So that is Cairn. A great game, but just didn't stick around.
I completely agree. If you're somebody that likes positional battler games,
2-player only,
yeah, you'd probably like it. It's a good game.
Yes, it is. Yeah. The second one that we're going to talk about today is Raptor. Now, Raptor is definitely one of my top 10 2-player games.
Raptor is a great game. I want to point out, though, Raptor has a distinct difference than Cairn and Onitama, because we brought that one in, too. Raptor is asymmetric, whereas the other two are not.
That is a good point. One player plays as the mother raptor and her babies, and the other team plays as the scientists. The mother raptor and the babies have their own movesets. The scientists have their own. They have different abilities. The scientists can set fires and tranquilize the mother. The mother can move very quickly across the board and kill scientists very easily. The goals are also very different. The mother raptor is trying to get her babies off the board, and the scientists are trying to anesthetize the mother or put enough of the babies to sleep and capture them so as to study them. It's great. It's really good. I've definitely painted all the miniatures for that one. I painted all the tiny, tiny little figures.
They're so tiny. The little baby raptors are so tiny, but they're fantastic.
They are really great. I also got aftermarket stones to put in the game as the boulders.
That's right, the boulders. Yeah, they're normally those kind of cardboard, where you kind of put them together in a T shape and they fall apart and stuff. Yeah. As most of those things do over time.
Honestly, they were never poor quality, but I think it has something else that you love, which is a modular, randomized setup.
Yep.
You have the Saharan side or the jungly side, and depending on which side you choose, it's a very, very different game. You have different alleys. You have different paths. Sometimes you can set up the board in such a way that the mother is at a very big disadvantage, and you have to play around that to work on the game. It's just a great game.
Yes, I very much like the game. I am also particularly enamored by the theme. You know, Jurassic Park and just dinosaur movies, animated, live action, all of them. I love them. I've always loved them. So the theme of Raptor was just right in my wheelhouse.
I don't know if we've ever played a game that you didn't say, hold on to your butts. I mean, it's just that close to it. The other beautiful thing about that game is the mechanic. The mechanic to play cards is that both players play a card. You show the cards simultaneously. Whoever has the higher number gets to take some actions, and whoever has the lower number gets to do the action on the card. So, for instance, let's say you play a 7. I can't remember what the 7 is, but then I play the 4 set fire. You get the difference between our cards and action points. So you get 3 action points to do actions however you want, and then I get to do my actions, that is to set fires in some specific laid out way. That game is amazing because you only have a hand of 3 cards of the 9 cards you have in the game. So you are very limited in what you have. I'm very limited, but we also have to suss out what the other person's doing. And the hardest thing to experience in that game is when you play the 9, which is the strongest card that doesn't have any ability because it can never have an ability, and the other person plays an 8. So they get an incredibly strong ability on their card, and you get 1 action point. It's tough. So there's a push and pull of reading your opponent that also goes into it. Very, very important about how you can play the game with somebody. I love Raptor, and I never pass up an opportunity to play it.
No, it really is a fantastic game. So the $1 million question, though,
I don't think it's that big of a
question.
If you
could only play one for the rest of time, Raptor or Cairn?
Definitely Raptor. Definitely Raptor. I find the variability setup of Raptor, the asymmetry. So if I'm tired of playing one of the factions, I can play the other one. Or if I'm playing with somebody and it's their first time playing it and they want to be the Raptors and I've always played the Scientist, I'll still play the Scientist and be very happy about it. How about you?
I would agree. I would go with Raptor as well. Not to say Cairn's not a good game. It really is. But I think Raptor edges it out on, as you say, the variability and the dynamic play.
I love it. I really do love that. Okay, so that was Board Game Standoff. Next up, we have another guest segment. Last week we had Blau from Uwe Corner, who talked about an Uwe Rosenberg game. This week we have one of my favorite adventurers, not very well known to the populace at large. She is a globetrotter herself. Would take it away, Minnesota Jones.
Hello, ladies and germs out there in podcast land. This is Minnesota Jones coming at you, talking to you about a game today called Archaeos Society. Now, I am quite the globetrotter. I love my travels, and this game really encompasses all the things I love about going around the world. In this game, you're either trying to grab a single card from the offer, or you can grab a card from the deck, but you want to watch out for those monkeys, because there's monkeys that are going to stop the game and make you score points. What else do you do in this game, you might ask? Well, you're trying to go up on a bunch of different tracks, and all these different types of landmarks and temples are available for you, and every single game's different because of the composition of the cards, don't you know? Are you going with the cartographers that are going to let you chain different plays, or are you going to try to go with the photographers that are worth just a little bit more points? Or are you going to go with the professor? Hey, you know what? You're going to be able to move forward on one of the tracks for free, but gosh darn, the person with the fewest points is going to move backwards. It's a great push and pull. Highly recommended. Archaeos Society by Paolo Mori. Great game. Back to you, Blue.
Thank you, Minnesota Jones, for that very informative review of Archaeos Society.
It's a great game.
We're going to move on to our main topic now. Board game stats to track or not to track.
Oh,
Blue, do you track board game stats?
100% I do, and I am a sucker for it.
Yes, I had never done it before until we really started doing our weekly board game meetups, and I was maybe a little bit jealous of you being able to pull out your phone and say, I've got a 73% win rate at this game, and you've never won. And I said, how do you know that? And he goes, well, I track my stats.
Yep.
So I have started doing it, and I've been doing it for several years now, but clearly not as long as you have.
I've probably been doing it for about 8 years solidly, but I have definitely also put in some plays of things from the past before that, because I knew that I'd played certain games at some point, and I could, every time I would remember it, I'd be like, yeah, I played that probably around 2012 or something like that. It's always funny to play a game with a new person, and then you pull out your phone and you bring up the thing, and you know, that's how we choose our first player. That's how we choose starting players. There's a randomizer in Board Game Stats. That is the app that we use, by the way, is specifically Board Game Stats. And they look at you and they go, wait, you're recording this? And you go, yeah. I record how long it takes. I record if it was your first play, who the first player was, and then the stats of how many points each person got. And they go, that's stupid. Then 5 months goes by, and then that person and I play a game again, and they're like, oh, have I played this before? And I go, well, yes, you have. And they go, oh, what was my high score last time? And they get all excited because you took notes, right? You took that, you had that in the hopper that you could pull up those quotes.
The app, Board Game Stats, is amazing.
Yeah.
It records pretty much everything you would want about a game. Anything you can think of, the developers have done, and it's in there, and it's easy to use. I think that for me, I love the stats. I love seeing win rates and the amount of times I've played with particular people. And it's always interesting to look at, you know, win rates or score, you know, the amount of score that somebody gets on particular styles of games. Some people you will see trends. They tend to do better at the negotiation games or the positional battlers or what they are. I think that's really interesting. The thing that I like the most, the thing that genuinely I get the most enjoyment out about this app, and it's not even stats related, is that I can take pictures of the game boards and like store them in there. I love going back and if, you know, if we're thinking if we've played something before, being to look at it and say, oh yeah, the board was so interesting, was such an interesting state when I took that picture.
It is a great time capsule, and you can go back, and every time you're scrolling through the plays for something to look at something else, you go, oh, I took a picture of that one. You can look at it and go, oh, I remember that game. I've said before, my favorite game in this world is Spirit Island. And that is a game, especially with the upgraded components and the nice boards and all that kind of stuff. When you take a picture of it, it tells a story. You can see exactly what was going on, and you can always look at the characters that are on the board. Or, you know, I think I looked at a picture recently and I saw like 100 beast tokens in one location. And I was like, well, somebody was playing Many Minds as one, you know. You can tell little things from the tales, especially when the scores happen, or if it's a co-op and there's no scores and you just go, oh, that's right, we lost that one, and being able to look back on that.
Yes, it truly is cool. What I think is also interesting is, you know, I started out doing it where I would record the first player and the score. And then 6 months later, it's first player and then the roles that each person was playing and the score. And then it added on, well, what was the score breakdown? Let me record how many points you got for your sheep, and then your houses and your, you know, action cards. And so it's just kind of just evolved over time of adding more and more, which is almost a little bit daunting. When I, you know, start a new game, I'm like, hold on, I got to get, especially if it's like an asymmetric game, like a Root or a Sidereal Confluence, and I got to be like, oh, well, what role are you playing? Oh, the space elves that have the crazy name and stuff, and you got to type it all in. So it's a little bit daunting sometimes, but again, being able to look back at it, I very much enjoy.
I have definitely, I call it DMV. Whenever you have your time where you're sitting waiting for something that you have no chance. I mean, I say DMV, but it's also doctor's office, or you're waiting in line at the grocery store, or whatever it is. You pull out your phone, you're going to do something. Instead of just going onto Reddit or social media or anything like that, I'll open Board Game Stats and I'll just start to add things in. So I'll tag games, or I will go in and actually input the different factions you can play as, so that the next time I play it, I can, you know, do that, or I'll go back and add in things that I forgot about. Here's my question to you. How much do you care about the challenges on Board Game Stats?
So I have done 2 challenges. I have 2 challenges running right now. I do the H index challenge, which is X plays X times. So it'd be play a game, you know, play 10 games 10 times, play 8 games 8 times, and then as you progress and play more and more games, that index goes up. That's kind of just a perpetual running thing that's kind of fun to see how many times you've played a particular set of games. I also do the 10 by 10 challenge, which is a similar thing. It's play 10 games 10 times, but it's a challenge that you're trying to do it over a year. And I actually don't think I'm going to finish this year's. I think I've played 8 games 10 times, and I just don't think I'm going to be able to get the last 2 up the couple more plays that I need. I think they're fun. I think it gives a reason to get games back on the table, right? If I choose 10 games at the beginning of the year and maybe 6 months down the line, I kind of lose a little bit of steam on one of those games, then it's kind of a slog to get it back. But, for people that have big board game collections and they enjoy all the games, they can choose, I want to put Space Alert out there. I want to do Space Alert 10 times this year. I haven't played it in a while. I think that's cool.
I have so much respect for you in so many ways, but one of the ones that I love is that if we ever say, what should we play? You will genuinely say, I don't care. I'll play whatever you want. I am not that way. I'm an impetuous child, and when I'm in the mood to play a game, I want to play it, and if I'm not in the mood to play a game, it is a slog for me to play that game. I have so many friends that I'm so lucky to have that are like, I don't care what we play, let's just play something, and then I get to pick the game. It's very nice. I always try to stand down and be like, hey, if anybody wants to play anything specific, please let me know, or else I'm just going to pick something I want to play. And that, hasn't seemed to bite me too much.
Well, I feel like part of that, though, and you bring up a good point, but part of that is because the game collection that you have is curated to games that we've played and enjoy. And if games fall out of style or we stop enjoying them, you're pretty good at culling those games.
Preview to what we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of the challenges. I can also see getting too into them to the point where I'm working against my nature. Like the 10x10 challenge. If I started that and I picked a game that it's not specific games, is it?
Well, so you can do it either way.
That's right.
You can do it where it will just say, it'll grab the 10 most played games so that you can do it, or you can choose, these are the 10 games that I am going to try to play this year.
See, and I don't think that plays into my play style. If I like a game, I'll keep playing it, no doubt.
Sure.
And if I see on a list that I've played, let's just say, Neuroshima Hex. I played Neuroshima Hex 8 times this year. I had to play it 2 more times to reach my H goal. There's nothing that you could possibly do to make me want to play something less than tell me that I have to do it, especially when it's an entertainment thing, right?
Sure.
That's the tough thing.
I feel like, and this is obviously, it comes down to personal preference or personal drive. I'm the type of person where I think it would be really interesting to hit these. I'm not going to hit my 10x10, and it doesn't bother me at all.
Good. Yes. Yeah. Then that should be the thing too, is that it doesn't bother you if you don't hit those things.
Yeah.
H-index, I like my H-index. I've gotten up to 23 now, and that sounds like I've done that, but
Hold on.
Okay.
H-index 23. So that's 23 games, 23 times. That's like 490 plays or something.
Which is nuts.
That is nuts.
Yes.
And so that was going to be my point that comes up about me not minding the 10x10. That's 100 plays. I work full time. We play just a couple of games a week, really. So if I play 3 games a week over 52 weeks, that's only 150 games. If I'm going to dedicate 100 of them to 10 different ones when my collection is 50 games, that's really limiting. So I understand when I went into this that I probably wasn't going to complete it. But for people that play a lot more games than I do, it might be much more of an achievable goal.
I really didn't think about the fact that to get 100 plays in 1 year means you would play 10 games twice a week for all year.
My H-index
Minimum.
Isn't even 10 yet. So my
It is. I thought it was 13.
It's 9. Mine is 9.
9. Okay.
I'm almost there. Had I
play?
finished it. Marvel Remix. I need one more play of General Orders World War II. We'll get it to 10.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I'm trying to not do the thing where, if I play Carcassonne, a game I haven't played in years, if I play Carcassonne one more time, then I'll up my H-index because that matters at all. Yeah. I should try to be I'd say I should try to be, but it would be nice to not focus on that and play the games that I want, which I largely do, right? If I'm on the cusp, sometimes I'll push it a little bit.
So clearly we both like the stats. We both like recording them. I have talked to a couple of other people as in preparation for this topic, and one of them did have a contrary point of he didn't enjoy doing it, had attempted to or had previously, tracked stats and stuff, but found that it took away some of the enjoyment of playing games if he couldn't do better than he had done in the past. If he felt he was playing suboptimally, it would kind of ruin the fun of the game. What do you think?
I could see that. If I focused on that, I think I would have a bad time. But I've also been playing games long enough to know that it's not the end that I care so much about, as much as I enjoy the playing of the game. I've recently been playing a lot more solo games, and I definitely prefer solo games that have a win condition as opposed to beating your own score. That being said, I've been playing a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games that I don't care what my score is at the end. I really like the different machinations of the games and trying to try new things.
And that's a great point. I think, and Uwe does great at this, there are so many different routes to good scores or victory in his games. One game you might go a complete, livestock, cows and sheep build. The next one you might go completely fields and going for the field phase, or something completely different, action cards or whatever it is. So games that have those variable, like good, strong, different paths to victory are top notch.
Especially the sandboxy games, because just like you said earlier, one of the things I started doing more recently, it wasn't as robust when we started doing this, but the scoring mats inside of the thing. I remember a time when I had 7 different apps that were all for scoring different games. I had a Feast for Odin app, I had a Caverna app, I had an Agricola app. They were really easy to download. It was nice to download those things. Like Concordia has a great points generator app that you can use. But now Board Game Stats has, from what I understand, user submitted score sheets so that you can score inside the game and keep track of all those things.
Which is pretty nice. One thing that we've certainly noticed is when we bring in people that aren't maybe quite as into the hobby as we are, scoring can be tedious and daunting when it's, this many points times X number of cards that you have that get you this, and and there's negatives and positives and some of those variable scoring times. Being able to just plug how many of these types of cards did you have into the app and then it does it for you is pretty nice.
It is quite nice. Have you tried, this is totally off topic, but have you ever tried a game that has a photographic scoring app?
The only one that comes to mind, I've never even tried it, is Fantasy Realms.
Oh, it really?
Yes.
That's kind of cool.
I've not used it, but yeah, the way that works is you kind of lay your cards out on the table, you use your phone camera and photograph it, and then it does all of the the scoring and the optimization for you, which is cool.
Yeah, I do like the scoring app that came for Fantasy Realms, the one that is just a check off whether you have these things or not. Yep. They have one for Imperium, which you have to put out all your cards where you can see all the different cards. I think you have to see the bottom of the cards because they all have the identifier numbers on them. And then you take a picture of them and it will score it for you. I've tried it once. It didn't work great, and so I've never been back to it. But that thought seems to be an interesting idea of maybe it'll get better. Maybe my camera's not good enough. I don't know.
That was going to be my only concern. I don't know if I would trust it at this point. How accurate is it?
Also, especially with those games, I've played them enough that I know how to score them quickly, but I've watched people spend 10 minutes scoring their Imperium hand, and it's very daunting.
And then unfortunately get it wrong.
And then you get it right. That's the big thing too. Yeah. So as far as Board Game Stats, I really enjoy that app. I find that I'm on it frequently when I'm just scrolling through, looking at something. It's exciting to add a new game in there. We have added a couple of games, like my coworkers and I designed a game together, and I added that in there for a bachelor party, your bachelor party. I kind of invented a Wits and Wagers for your bachelor party that we played with all the bachelors.
It was good.
I'm really glad you enjoyed it.
It was a hit. I very much enjoyed that.
Oh, Wits and Wagers is another one we need to talk about because that's a great trivia game. So that is the end of our main topic, Board Game Stats, to track or not to track. I think we're on the same page that we will track in the future.
Absolutely. I think it comes down to each individual person. If it's something that you will get enjoyment out of, as you said, I do the same thing. Scrolling through Reddit is obviously not the best, or sometimes can be a little bit depressing. So going into my Board Game Stats, looking at previous plays, looking at new statistics is always fun for me.
Now on to the end of our episode. We end every episode the same way by asking the question. Red, do you want to say it with me?
Absolutely.
Does it fart? Here we have Tigris and Euphrates, largely considered one of the best games of all time by Reiner Knizia. My edition is the Mayfair edition. Here on Boxfart, quiet in the studio, we're going to find out, does it fart? We'll give it a couple.
Yo, Blue, what were you gonna do right there? What was the sound?
The first time we did this, hold on, it went like this. It farted, and I went, oh, and that just is not the sound I want to make.
No, it was so good. It was so good.
To the point where we're gonna make it into your text tone for me on your phone.
Absolutely. Tigris and Euphrates, that was a solid box fart.
What do you think? I'm gonna give it a 3.
I think a 3 is a good score. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna change this up. I'm gonna go 3.2.
Oh, 3.2. All right. 3.2. 3.2. We're gonna average out to 3.1. Apparently, 3.1 box fart. Well, fantastic game. Pretty good box fart.
Pretty good.
I'm going to say. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening to the Boxfart podcast. I've been Blue.
And this is Red.
We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to the Boxfart podcast. If you'd like to contact either Red or Blue, feel free to send an email to redblueboxfart, all one word, @gmail.com. If you feel so inclined, leave a review for us on the platform of your choice. And always remember, a piece laid is a piece played. Unless you didn't really mean to play it, in which case just go ahead and chill out, man. It's a friendly game.